Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Amar Elm, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to be joined by Dr. Deepak Bhootra, the founder and CEO of Jabulani Consulting. This is a Texas-based firm specializing in sales training, coaching, and leadership development. With over 3 decades of experience in business development and leadership transformation, Dr. Bhootra has worked with Fortune 100 companies and is passionate about redefining sales leadership through empathy, authenticity, and innovation. His firm integrates proven sales techniques such as the Sandler selling system and DISC assessments while placing a strong emphasis on well-being, meaning, and long-term success. Dr. Bhootra, welcome to Founders Future.
Amar, if that was a pitch, I would buy whoever this dude is that you're talking about. Sounds like an awesome guy. Thank you for that, sir.
Yeah, this guy knows what he's doing, 100%.
At least you made him sound intelligent. I'm grateful.
I love
Extremely
that.
grateful and really excited to be here, Amar. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am grateful to have you here. I am super excited to dive in. I always like to start from the beginning. Take us back to before you started your consulting company. What were you doing at that time, and what was the motivation behind starting the company?
So, 30 years in the corporate world, Amar, right? And at some point in your career, you're enjoying the platitudes, extreme gratitude, right? I've made my money. At age let's not talk about age, but at some point you ask yourself, so what do you want to be remembered for? Because it's fun to be part of the corporate race, but rats win races and the corporate rat is still a rat, even if he wins the corporate race. So the question was, what would you like to be remembered for? And I actually said, you know what, I want to slow the pace down. I want to do something that excites me. And for me, that journey was that I look around me and I see there's lots of issues around how salespeople are being handled, managed, the way that they compete. There's a lot of focus on technique, but there's very little focus on behavior and attitude.
Mm,
Ultimately, it's mindset. And if you, Amar, just step back for a second and think about sales in general, the problem that I'm solving is very simple. Salespeople understand technique. Salespeople need help with mindset. Pre-COVID, there was a very different workplace we lived in. Post-COVID, a lot of things changed. A lot of remote work. People have literally relocated themselves, right? So the mindset has changed. Salespeople have this notoriety that they're the guys that make the most bucks, therefore they should take the most abuse. That is misplaced. That is absolutely misplaced. They get the bucks because of the fact that they are actually doing a very noble profession and they're doing something unique with that. So my game is different. I like to make sure that sales remains a fundamentally noble human profession, and
mhm.
that's where I come in. I take a very what I call psychologically informed approach to things, and that's where I am. And just a funny tidbit: when we talk about my company, a lot of people ask me, Deepak, what does Jabulani mean? Jabulani EMR is very simple, very simple. It's a simple word from Zulu in South Africa that simply means rejoice, be
Rejoice.
happy, be positive. And a lot of people use it in the context of Easter, right? You rejoice because he's risen, as they say, right? So that's where this context comes in. And by the way, I'm not even Christian, but when I put this name together, I said it just resonates very well with me. It makes sense to me from a spiritual point of view. But more importantly, that's how I'd like to be remembered when I exit the room.
Mm,
Someone who spread joy, positivity, and brought that average, the climate in the room feels much better when you exit. Not because it was so bad when you were in there, but because it's better than what it was when you got in there. That's
wow.
where I come from. That's how I fit in, sir.
I love that so much. And you made me think of something. This is very personal about what I'm
Mhm.
about to share with you.
Sure.
I have affirmations that I write down and that I read on a consistent basis. And one of them is every room I enter, I uplift. And I love that. I love that
Yes.
because help us understand transitioning from corporate world to entrepreneurship isn't always the most easy transition in the world.
Mm.
So walk me through what was that experience like for you? Were there any challenges and how did you overcome them?
Oh, wow. This is where a normal man would lie down on a couch and say, tell me more, doctor, because I really need to talk about this. Let me tell you the biggest shock for me. It'll just blow your mind, Amar. It'll blow your
Um,
mind. Here's a guy who's had senior roles in big companies, worked in 5 different countries, right? I have 4 degrees from 4 continents, and it all came down to Dudley squat. When you're in the corporate world, your company's moniker, its aura, its brand opens doors for you. When I say to someone, hi, this is Deepak from Capgemini, this is Deepak from HP, this is Deepak from Sun Microsystems, people are like, yeah, yes, tell me, how can I help? Try doing a cold call from those companies. It's much better, right? Think about it, the impact. The first shock for me was that I actually underestimated that when you move into your own stuff, how much personal branding matters. How
Mm,
much do people hear and understand about you without all those fancy degrees and stuff? Because the fancy degrees carried a lot of aura, but the reality was that they were not defining you. What was defining you was, Amar, the fact that you were working for a company doing a specific role and you were
mm,
growing and you had, let's say, 800 people at one point reporting to me. Nice, cool. I become an entrepreneur and I actually realized people don't return my calls, which was a
yeah,
shock to the system. And then I
yeah,
realized that I had to change. When you're in enterprise sales at that corporate level, you're actually trying to be the smartest person in the room. But when
mm,
you're an owner and an entrepreneur and you're trying to do something different, you actually need to slow down. It's not about you anymore. It's about the other person. What pain do they have? What do they want to talk about? And if there's
yeah.
one thing that people want to talk about, is they want to talk about themselves, Amar. And that's the biggest shift for me, is building that personal brand, slowing down to actually respect the fact that someone is giving me time to talk to them. Let's
Mm,
do that and don't jump to conclusions. Listen to the full story and then give your observations and facts. Previously, I would listen, interject, and people respect that because I was working on very complex engagements and stuff, right? When you become a owner, when you're doing your own consultancy, you're dealing with people, individuals, that's when really B2B is not B2B anymore. It's actually belly to belly selling. You're
I
actually communicating with
like
people. And when you do that, it changes your thought process. And it's not been easy. I must be honest with you. It took me about 7 months. And today I'm in a very relaxed state where I actually feel that I can relate to people in a far different way because I put in a lot of effort to modify my approach. That would be the single biggest thing I would talk about. And a lot of people who come from a corporate background underestimate that, right? They do. Because everyone's looking at that and saying, wow, 30 years. Wow, he's just did this. You have to change. Be ready to change. Be willing to step down a bit, talk less, listen more. That's it. That's it,
that.
Amar.
I love that. There's so many golden nuggets that you just threw out there. Even the one about just being in a relaxed state. I think that alone could dramatically increase people's close rate. For just talking about salespeople, helps
Yeah.
everybody in life, but in sales in particular, especially when you're 100% commission, the energy that you bring to a conversation is probably the most important part. More important than what you're saying, all that stuff, because it's the old adage of people don't remember what you say, they remember how you made them feel. So I love that. I love that. Now, for the listeners that don't know anything about your business, help us understand, who is your ICP? Who do you love to work with? And then from there, what offers and services do you provide?
Sure. Pretty simple. My sweet spot is a B2B seller. This is an individual that is typically working for a company where they are talking to end users directly. It's not a business to consumer setup. It's like an Apple store where you're going to walk in and I'm going to coach or teach the Apple store guy how to sell to consumers. That's a very different mindset.
Yeah,
This one is about, you are going to work at the customer space. These are organizations which typically have very well structured teams,
yeah,
people. So you need to come in with that mindset. You cannot just build things on the fly. You got to understand you're going to be walking into an environment that's already fully functional. So you need to be extremely adaptive. Two, these are guys that are not typically going to pick up any next gizmo and slam it into place, right? Because they want to do things in a structured manner. So
yeah,
when we talk about B2B sales, my ICP is typically the 25 to 35-year-old guy that is in sales, starting to cut his teeth, loves it, but is not learning fast enough or is stuck because he's getting nervous. He's behind his target
mhm,
stuff.
yeah,
Typically, these are the young guys that actually don't understand the value of coaching, understand the value of sales training, right? They will do sales training only because the company is paying for it, and number two, the company is telling them that they need to do it. That's it. There's otherwise no major incentive. Most salespeople actually believe that's them sitting in the office is actually wrong. It's a curse. They should be outside selling, and I respect that. I respect that, and I understand that. So for me, my ICP is any salesperson who believes they can do better, who is challenged with their own attitude, mindset, who wants to sharpen their techniques. That's my ICP. I go work with those individuals. I typically want to work with organizations for the simple reason that one, if you do one-on-one work, Amar, there's a limit to how many hours I can give to someone, correct? I can't work for more than 6 hours a day. But when I'm doing work for a company, I most likely am impacting five, six, seven salespeople at the same time. So that multiplier effect also happens. So my perspective would be working with B2B sellers who are working for small, medium organizations. I, at this point, don't want to get aggressive into enterprise, and I'll tell you why. Because as a solopreneur at this point, I have my two sons working part-time with me, so it's actually a family affair. And the boys actually invested in me, which is also an oddity. But the fact is that they trust their dad to preserve their investment. I think it's a smart move on their point because no father would want to fall in the eyes of their kids. I'm their role model, correct? So therefore, I have to work doubly hard. And I know it sounds weird to say that, but I just want to share that because some of your
Yeah,
listeners are going to be people who are coming from a family-owned business background or
yeah,
expect the kids to take over from them one day. So I'm just making that statement in that context. So that's, I hope that gives you perspective of what my
yeah.
ICP is and what I'm aiming for.
It does, yeah, and I appreciate you breaking down that you typically work with organizations because that was going to be my next question. And I like that you broke down that you decided not to do the one-on-one because it's less scalable. You can't have as much impact. And also as a business, you're just not going to make as much revenue as you would if you were working with organizations. That's something that I talk to a lot with coaches, consultants, agencies, because we've worked with over 3,000 at this point. So
Hmm.
we've seen everything that happens in the field and understand that the model that you're going with is definitely superior to the one-on-one, but it also depends on the goals that the person has.
You nailed it, Amar. You absolutely nailed it.
Yeah,
When I started this journey, my goal was I wasn't clear what my goal was. And to be honest with you, and I'll say this with my hand in the air, no lies. I will take anyone's money because when you are starting off, you have this mathematical model in your mind, right? And then reality hits you. So I actually started working with individuals. And to be honest with you, 70% of my revenue initially came from individuals.
cool.
It's now at 50-50. I need to get it to 70-30, and that's the direction I'm moving towards. So if you had met me, let's say 7 months ago when I started this business of mine, right? I would have said to you that at that point I was not being picky or choosy. But the benefit of working, this is a big message to all the future business owners or the current business owners out there is you're going to have a lot of mathematical models. You'll have a lot. Respect money. Wherever it comes from, take it. Don't be caught up that, no, it doesn't fit my ICP, therefore I'm not touching it. That's not what matters initially. What matters initially is you're going to bed in peace, knowing that the bills are being paid for and that you can keep investing in the business. I
Mhm.
have, in the last 7 months, there are like 9 or 10 people that started at the same time with me in business that I was aware of. Three have already gone back looking full-time jobs and two already working. That's a 50% fail ratio in 8 months only.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is a message to everyone. Get off your high horse. You got your ICP, you got your model, but you need to first work everything, understand what makes you tick. There are certain things that I didn't know what to do when I started off. Amar, I had, with all my 4 degrees, you'll be surprised as to how much trial and error I've done. Huge. And I recommend that to people. And I'm not even going to get into how to do your P&L and finances and budgets. But if someone is telling me that, hey, Deepak, I'm going to give it 1 year, and after that, I'm going to tell you, you're going to give it only 9 months. Because the last 3 months, you're going to have to do hard work to make sure that you're doing the right decision to exit.
Yeah.
So your funding needs to last you maybe 15 months, not 12. But you need to start acting like you're going to die in 9 months. Otherwise, you're not going to even hit 12 months. Those
Mhm.
subtle variations.
I like that. Let's shift a little bit to the back end of the business. Help me understand, how do you attract clients? What does your lead generation process look like?
So my lead generation process when I started was, hey, let's pick up the phone and call everyone who's ever worked with me before.
Yeah.
Amazing, Amar. It was an amazing experience. It was so much fun. I had 83 people on my first event. I did a LinkedIn event on which I wanted to talk about why salespeople fail.
Mm,
And 83 people accepted that invite, and my whole friends, my ex colleagues, all buzzing. We'll be there, dude. Rock on, Deepa, rock on. I get into the call. There were 8 people on the call, Amar. Eight.
yeah.
They were not 83, they were eight. And I
Mm,
just was stunned. My son was one of those eight who were dialed in, and he said to me, I have never in my life seen you so disappointed. I said,
mm,
yes, because I didn't expect that, especially because everyone was sending me a message, we'll be there. And I even sent reminders, right? That was the first lesson for me about understanding what works for others may not work for you. Or if you think that you're different from others, you want to try something, be ready to fail, not just. And don't be cocky about your ideas. Don't be very sure that, yep, I've done it before, so it's going to happen again. No, build in failure, build in trial and error. The very next event, I then changed my tactic. I took the concept, the idea, and I actually started reaching out more broader, Amar, to understand what was going on. Then I started tapping into LinkedIn. Till then, LinkedIn for me was something that was nice. And by the way, I've been on LinkedIn for nearly, Amar, I kid you not, maybe 15 years now, 15, at least 15 years. In those 15 years, when I started this business, I was at 22,000 followers. People told me, 22,000 followers, you will never die hungry. Amar, I died hungry. And here's a message for everyone out there. This is another failure. LinkedIn today is 80% of my business. Sir, 80% of my business is LinkedIn. And because of LinkedIn, I actually realized that my posts and the algorithm are not always predictable. right? I
Mm.
can have the same post, but I posted it. Sometimes it just works, sometimes it just doesn't work. I don't know how to explain it to you. I
Yeah.
don't know, right? I don't want to get into that. But what I'm telling you is figure out where you click and then double down on it. I went all over the place. I went cold emailing. I spent thousands of dollars on cold email infrastructure. Results were horrifyingly bad. I've gone through 4 vendors in the last 6 months just to give an idea because I still have some faith because people keep telling me cold email works. I am telling you, I don't think it does. And I have enough documentary proof for it. But the problem is, I'm still not man enough to admit that I need to disinvest from it. So I'm going to do that soon. That's another area that I invested in, right? I also
Mhm.
invested in automated bots using, how do you say this? An individual reached out to me and said, hey, Deepak, I can actually get you tons of meeting calendar invites and we're going to use automated entities to do that. I'm like, okay, whatever that means. What I didn't realize that it involved creation of fake LinkedIn profiles and stuff like that. I shut that operation down very fast, very quick. That's not what I wanted to do. Right now, I'm experimenting with AI videos through LinkedIn. I've hired 2 virtual assistants who are working, expanding my business for me because I brought the revenue to a point where I'm actually now seeing where I need to and where I can make the most money. So I'm doubling down on that. Where I'm doing very well then is LinkedIn. I would say 80% of my revenue is LinkedIn. Most of the resources come through LinkedIn. And if I ever find a customer that's not on LinkedIn, it's never happened till now, just FYI. It's not
Yeah.
happened till now.
Yeah, fair enough. How the virtual assistants, what is their role? What are they going to be doing? And then also when you say LinkedIn, is that like cold DMs? Is that inbound? Is it a mixture? Walk me through that.
So let me explain it to you as follows. Amar, LinkedIn for me is a very powerful tool. Let's first look at the obvious because one, it's the right network, right? These are my customers. All B2B sellers are there. Because if you're a B2B seller and your customer wants to know who you are, where's the first place they go? They go to LinkedIn, right? So if you're not in LinkedIn, then I have to ask myself what's going on. So in fact, I will actually decline customers who approach me one-on-one and tell me that, hey, I saw your profile, I saw your post, I'd like to work with you. And I go to the LinkedIn profile, and if I see something like, and I'm sorry if I say this, but if I see anything with like less than 500 contacts or a post done 3 months back, I actually would stay away because I do know this is not the right customer that I want because I'm also looking for successful people who have got ambition and drive. So that's
Hmm.
a catch over there. So for me, LinkedIn started off with me first doing tons of posts, looked at a lot of ways to automate, generate, and then I realized I love writing. You see all these
Yeah.
books in the back, they're all written by me in the back, the ones facing you at least, right?
What?
So this is tons of information that I have all over the place. So the question is, how do you, why are you then needing tools and techniques? And why do you need ChatGPT? I'm right now reading LinkedIn. I freak out. People writing there. Guys, 8 minutes and I will give you eight months worth of posts. And my question is, why are people that lazy? So I do use ChatGPT. I'm a big AI user. I've got tons of automation in my business. I've automated my entire thing. I do AI based illustrations for all my books. A lot of people tell me that's blasphemy. I get that. But when the calculator came out, did you banish mathematics? No. Did people forget how to do numbers? No. We in fact became smarter. Phone came, what happened? People forgot their mom's phone number, but they call their mom more often, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that. So at the end of the day, it's one of
Love
those
that.
things.
Yeah, I like that a
So
lot.
outbound, LinkedIn outbound, I would say to you that let me tell you what works for me though, is build trickle feed relationship by posting regularly, commenting with no hesitation. And two, a lot of lead magnets, a lot of information for free. I actually initially was very reticent about it because I thought my IP is my IP. Then I realized in the day of ChatGPT and the day of perplexity, anyone who says that my IP doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah,
Your
yeah, yeah,
IP is not your IP. Your IP, how it's applied and how the customer gets value from it is actually where the fun is.
yeah,
So I can give you a template and people run away with the template. The best prompt to update your resume and that guy is still struggling for a job. Why?
yeah, yeah,
Because that's not where the catch is. If someone actually sold you the real truth, it won't work. So I
yeah.
would say for me, I have only now started reaching out to my existing connects. Otherwise, I was relying totally on new connections. Now
Got it.
I've just breached the 28,000 connect mark. The bad news, and this is something which Amar is something I'm going to close off with, is people need to understand one thing. When I started this journey, I was at 22,000 people, and people told me, oh, you're set for life. I was not set for life. My ICP was only 20% of those 22,000 people. Only
Mm,
20%. The rest of the guys were all junk that I have gathered along because I didn't know I was going to go into business. I didn't
yeah,
know that my personal brand was going to be LinkedIn one day. I knew LinkedIn is going to help me stay relevant in the corporate world, but guess what? I need to do the bare minimum. So I did the bare minimum.
yeah,
I then started publishing. I started giving away lead magnets. I started building out simple websites, simple structure, and just getting the message out. And I think that we are at a point where I would say that I'm not at the million impressions mark. I'm nowhere there, right? But I did go and get some favicon. I got understanding where I was. I put down some targets. I also actually benchmarked myself against the top 10 LinkedIn sales influencers. And I'm not saying I want to go run a multi-million dollar empire the way that those guys run it. But the principles that they apply, if I can use some of those principles to get to even 200, $300,000, hey, isn't that a great ideal to have, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I try telling people. I don't understand why so much everyone fascinated by Justin Welch.
Yeah.
Justin Welch was a multimillionaire even before he started his LinkedIn journey. So just stop the press, guys. But there's so much he teaches. You pick up those nuggets, you can do wonders with it, right?
For
People want
sure.
to use those nuggets to make millions. And I'm saying, geez, no. Making the first 100K is difficult. The second 100K is maybe difficult, but it's still hard. But as you progress, making a million is not that difficult if you know how to make the first 900K, right? And that's where the challenge is. Most of us
Sure.
don't know how to do that.
Can you briefly explain to us your sales process? And what I mean by that is not the sales philosophy, but once a lead comes in, maybe through LinkedIn, and you want to turn them into a client, what are the different steps in the process for you to do?
I would do it as follows. Typically, my outreach is pretty simple. Hey, I've been following your sales practice. I really appreciate what you're doing. I noticed this about you. I would love to connect. And I think that because we both like-minded and we both have a love for sales, I think we can offer each other lots of information and insights. Simple. And then I do not pester that guy for at least 2 months. I just don't do it, Amar. I don't. I'll tell you why, because I don't like it when people do it to me. My biggest phobia, I hate with a passion. And in fact, I have disconnected with people, is when I get an invite at 7:01. Hey, Deepak, like-minded, love it, looking forward to. Then within 2 hours or 1 hour, I get the boom. Next thing is, hey, I just went to your website and I saw the following 5 issues with it. Could I send you an update on that? Blah, blah, blah. And would you like to work with me on it? And I'm like, I can
Yeah,
understand a website person. You got to understand. I get that. I get that they're offering me a service. But when I am offering a service back to a customer, particularly in sales and sales training and coaching, you got to tread water here. These are highly charged individuals, very smart individuals. And by the way, if you think about it, Amar, it's like walking in and saying, I'm going to teach you how to brush your teeth. If you've been in sales for 10 years and someone tells you, I'm going to teach you how to sell, he's going to say, I've been doing it for 10 years, man. What are you talking about? That's
yeah,
another reality. Every time I try to establish a relationship, you got to understand that same guy already has a relationship with maybe two other trainers already because he's been working with some people before. So I'm competing with his past memories, his past training. And then, of course, the sales training industry is full of fragmented individuals. Everyone's got a briefcase and everyone has a sales methodology, right? How do you differentiate? That's why you differentiate by doing things absolutely differently than other people are doing, and tremendous value. So if I go and I'm consulting to a customer and I'm working with a customer, I assure you, if he pays me $200 an hour, he's going to get back $500 per hour worth of business because I've integrated AI into my day-to-day running of my business in such a way that I'm adding extra. I'm giving them
yeah,
more value than they would have got if they'd just done a normal discussion with someone else. And that's longevity then, right? Because I want to get repeat
for
business and
sure.
that really is working for me.
Yeah, I like that. There's a lot that I want to explore, but I know we're tight on time. What do you
Mhm.
feel like is the biggest challenge you're facing right now as a business owner?
I would honestly say to you as follows. I would like better predictability. Any salesperson out there or any one who's an owner of a business or a consultant will likely tell you, feast and famine is true. I get that. But let's go beyond feast and famine for 1 second. Feast and famine sounds like survival mode. But the point I'm trying to make is it's not about survival mode, it's about growth mode. No one gets into business just to break even, right? Or,
Yeah,
oh, I just want to make X amount so I can pay off my mortgage and I can just get some bread on the table. That there are other ways to do it. Why open your own business to do that then, right?
yeah,
I would say, why would you do that effort to do that stuff, man? Should have just got a part-time job. Why not just there's no
yeah.
Grubhub, DoorDash, whatever. There's tons of ways to figure out the bare minimum. But if you're in your business for yourself, then that would be the single biggest thing I would say to do focus on.
When you think of the future, when you think over the next 6 to 12 months, what are your goals, your performance targets, maybe revenue targets? Walk me through what are your top priorities over the next 6 to 12 months?
So I gave you an indication of that. Let me just quickly encapsulate it for you, right? I want to flip the revenue to be 70% from corporates and 30% from coaching, right? Because this way I get better margin business. It's better quality of earnings, right? That's most companies want that anyway, in any case, right? It's like Tesla. Why do you have six different types of cars? Because the blended margin is above industry average. That's what we're going to do. Two, Go beyond the feast and famine. Now go beyond saying to yourself, and the way I measure my metrics are different. I started off with zero offers, just FYI, Amar. Zero offers, just me, myself, and Irene, and my ego. Now today I have four offers, which are actually standardized. Behind those offers is actually templates, webinars, videos, and it's been a lot of effort, a lot of investment to create all that magic, right?
Yep.
And now I'm saying to myself, I'm actually going to now double down on offers, which is what I think you would call productizing your IP, correct? And when you
Yes.
productize your IP, that's when the fun starts. Now,
Yes.
I have been very, how do you say, lucky and unlucky on two fronts. One is, Amar, the people that I work with, I actually work with some of the most amazing talkers on the planet, but absolutely useless and worthless in terms of delivering me return on what I asked of them or what they told me they would do. I always, but I also want to point out something to you. You don't can't blame the vendor all the time. At the end of the day, caveat emptor, buyer beware. I was the
Yep.
guy that took the decisions. I will take blame for that. And my sons are very clear. They've done a quick calculation and they felt that in the last 7 months, I have blown $25,000 on bad ideas. Gave a guy 6K to do some automation for me, and he actually did automation using Power Automate, took me backwards, and the AI integration sucks. How did I miss that? He was wowing me with all the stuff he was going to do for me, and I was going to build you this extra stuff. I'm going to do this extra. Then it just kept getting delayed and issue. You really need to look at track record. So I would give one advice, which is if I were to, those are my learnings. And I think I'm digressing from the question
Yeah.
that you had, but that's just
No,
to
no,
give a
I love that.
perspective here.
I appreciate you sharing that. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Sir, very simple. I live and die on LinkedIn. My wife would argue you're going to die because of your mouth, because when you talk too much and someone's husband is going to hit you one day, or you're
Oh
going to
no.
choke on your chicken. I'm like, okay, woman, whatever. But,
Yeah,
sir, how do you reach out to me? Deepak Bhootra. There's only one on all of LinkedIn. There's Deepak Bhootra 0609. There's Deepak Bhootra 0702. But guess what? I was old enough and lucky enough to get Deepak Bhootra.
I like
If you want
that.
to send me an email, deepak at jabulaniconsulting.com. And
Awesome.
even more better, my name is visible to everyone. Just take that name and just add www.deepakbhutra1word.com and you'll get to my personal website,
Beautiful.
which I actually created because I got a lot of feedback from people. Disassociate yourself from your business too because you're an author. You're going
Yeah,
to one day walk onto a stage and you're going to say, I'm an author who happens to be, or I'm a sales coach who happens to be an author. These two things can become very big if you think about it, right?
yeah,
Because personality, persona. So I'm getting invited to talks. I'm here on the podcast because my profile said something to you guys, right? Maybe I've been sending so many emails or into either space, something hit your mail. I don't know. But
yeah.
how now, in my entire 30 years of existence in the corporate world, Amar, I'm going to close now by telling you this really powerful story. I've never done a podcast in my entire life. Can you believe it?
Wow. You did
But since
great.
September 3, sorry, punchline is this. Since September 3, I actually went and found a coach to help me to start my own podcast,
Nice.
which I'm going to do because I want to convert my 15 chapters of the book into a podcast episode. We're going to talk
Awesome.
about imposter syndrome. We're going to talk about burnout. We're going to talk about this,
Love
right?
that.
Then, and then along the way, someone told me, if you are going to prep to do a podcast yourself one day, how many podcasts have you actually attended as a guest? Because being a guest is actually a great experience also. So
Yeah,
you are my 13th podcast in the last 7 months.
very
And I
cool.
haven't even trying, have not even been trying. This is just how, when you start doing the LinkedIn magic, you start doing your post, you start creating a noise, a sense, you add
Yep,
value, the aura spreads. And I keep telling people, listen, if you're not going to do the right things and you keep complaining, how come Deepak gets all the stuff, but I don't get any? Then I
yep.
ask you, Deepak spent 4 hours on LinkedIn every day commenting, liking. It's a pain. It's a pain. But what have you done? And they will tell you, I picked up the phone and I called 50 cold calls. I get that. The ratio of cold calls is bad, especially in the sales training game. Be very careful too.
100%.
Yeah.
I love that. You've shared a lot this episode. I think people should go back and listen between the lines because there's a lot of wisdom that you shared.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's
yeah.
my age talking, Amar. That's my age talking.
I got it, and I love it, and it resonates with me. So that wraps up another insightful episode of Founders Future. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your journey,
My
sharing your insights.
absolute pleasure, Amar. Absolutely had a great time. I'm sure we could do this for another hour or two, but you know
Easily.
what? Patience is virtue. I think
Yep.
you guys are gonna ask you to pay them to actually listen to me beyond 30 minutes. So you know what? Thank you for the opportunity. You take care, man.
There you go. So for our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future. And if you're looking to scale your business and enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to discover how we can support your growth journey. Until then, keep on climbing.
Bye bye.